Imagine a world where the great red flag still flies over the Kremlin. The Soviet Union, a vast and powerful empire, did not crumble. Instead, it endured and adapted, remaining a formidable force on the world stage. In this world, the Cold War never truly ended. It simply changed its form. Tension between East and West continues to shape the lives of billions. The old lines on the map remain, a stark reminder of a division that never healed. Our world was born from the Soviet Union's collapse. But what if that moment never happened? The Soviet Union was more than a country. It was an idea, a promise, and for some, a beacon of hope. For others, it was a prison of nations, a monolith of oppression. Its influence stretched across the globe, its armies vast, its nuclear arsenal terrifying. The hammer and sickle remained a symbol of power, revolution, and control. In this alternate timeline, that symbol learned to survive in a changing world. The fall of the Berlin Wall was not inevitable. History is a branching path with countless possibilities unexplored. On another path, the Soviet bear did not stumble. It found its footing. The consequences of this survival would touch every aspect of modern life, from technology to global alliances. This is the story of that other world, a world where two superpowers continue their intricate dance of competition and coexistence. The great ideological struggle of the 20th century did not conclude. It evolved into a permanent feature of the 21st. We will explore this world as a serious thought experiment. How would the survival of this great power have reshaped our planet, our societies, and ourselves? The journey begins in 1990, at the moment the giant began to teeter. Let's step into a world where the Soviet Union never fell and see what might have been. By 1990, the Soviet Union was a superpower on shaky ground. Its military and nuclear arsenal were unmatched, and its influence stretched across Eastern Europe and beyond. But beneath the surface, deep cracks were forming. The economy was stagnant, store shelves empty, and corruption rampant. The promise of a prosperous communist future seemed more distant than ever. People were losing faith in the system that had governed their lives for generations. Yet, a new spirit of openness, glasnost, was in the air. Citizens could criticize the government and discuss history openly for the first time. This unleashed powerful forces, including long-suppressed nationalist sentiments in the republics. From the Baltics to the Caucasus, people began to dream of independence. The very foundations of the multi-ethnic Soviet state were being questioned. The world watched as the Cold War seemed to thaw, and the United States hoped for a peaceful, democratic Russia. But the situation was fragile. The Soviet Union stood at a crossroads: continue reform and risk disintegration, or reassert control and risk violence. The choices made in this critical period would determine the fate of the Soviet people and the world. The giant was teetering, and its next step would change history. But what if it chose a different path? For the Soviet Union to survive, it needed more than minor adjustments, it needed transformation. A different leader, or different choices by Gorbachev, could have led to a reformed, resilient union. The key balancing central authority with autonomy for the republics and state control with market forces. Imagine a gradual economic transition similar to China's model. The state would control key industries, but private enterprise would be allowed in others. This hybrid economy could revitalize the nation and fill empty shelves. Politically, a new treaty would grant republics significant powers over their own affairs, while Moscow retained control of foreign policy and defense. This federation could satisfy moderate nationalist movements and prevent total collapse. The Communist Party would remain, but shift focus to effective governance over world revolution. The new ideology, pragmatic patriotism, celebrating shared history and diversity, focusing on strength and stability. By navigating these reforms, the Soviet Union could stabilize itself. It would emerge leaner, more flexible, and more durable. The crisis of 1990 would become a turning point, not an end. The Soviet Union would survive, transform, but unbroken. And the world would never be the same. In this world, the Cold War never truly ends. The fall of the Berlin Wall marks a new phase, not a Western victory. The world remains bipolar, defined by the rivalry of two superpowers. NATO stays focused on containing a powerful Soviet Union. The Warsaw Pact reforms, but endures. Europe remains divided by a more permeable Iron Curtain. Global conflicts become proxy battlegrounds, with both sides supporting their allies. The UN Security Council is a stage for constant maneuvering and vetoes. The competition extends to influence economics and the hearts and minds of the developing world. The threat of nuclear annihilation remains ever present. Arms control summits are critical, and international cooperation is limited. It's a world of high stakes, constant vigilance, and simmering tension. The survival of the Soviet Union casts a long shadow over Eastern Europe. Hopes for full independence are suppressed. Poland, Hungary, and others remain in Moscow's orbit. The Warsaw Pact continues, and Soviet troops stay stationed on their soil. True democracy is out of reach. Managed elections, censorship, and secret police remain. Economically, these nations are tied to a revitalized Soviet bloc, trading eastward, not westward. The cultural gap with Western Europe widens, and Western influences are tightly restricted. For many, life is a negotiation, security and stability, but always yearning for freedom just out of reach. The relentless Cold War rivalry transforms technology and space. The internet as we know it never emerges. Instead, closed-off national networks, NATOnet and SovNet, dominate. Information is tightly controlled, stifling innovation and global collaboration. The digital world is balkanized, another front in the ideological struggle. The space race reignites permanent moon bases by the early 21st century and a race to Mars. Massive state investment drives rapid advances in rocketry and robotics. Science and math education are prioritized, and astronauts are national heroes. But the focus is on grand, state-funded projects, not consumer technology. We might have moon bases, but not smartphones. Technology is spectacular, but less personal and empowering. The global, interconnected culture of our era never materializes. Progress is real, but it comes at the cost of individual freedom and innovation. The world is more advanced in some ways, but less open and connected. The rise of China adds a third superpower to the global stage. The world becomes a grand chessboard. US, Soviet Union and China, each vying for influence. The Soviet-Chinese relationship is uneasy. Allies in ideology, rivals in ambition. Sometimes they form a powerful Eurasian bloc, other times their partnership fractures. The US faces the challenge of containing two adversaries, using triangular diplomacy to play them against each other. This three-superpower world is unstable and unpredictable. Crises can escalate rapidly, drawing in all three giants. Regions like Africa and the Middle East become intense arenas of competition. The risk of miscalculation is enormous. The shadow of great power conflict looms larger than ever. In the reformed Soviet Union of 2025, life is a tapestry of contradictions. The state guarantees employment, housing, healthcare and education. Security and social solidarity are sources of comfort, especially for the older generation. But personal freedom is limited. The state controls most aspects of life. Media is censored and dissent is dangerous. The SovNet provides information, but within strict boundaries. Material life is modest. Basic goods are available, but choice is limited. The pursuit of wealth is discouraged. Collective well-being is the focus. National pride is strong, fueled by achievements in space, science and sports. The arts and athletics are accessible to all, and life has its own rhythms and joys. It's a life of trade-offs, security for freedom, collective pride for individual expression. For those born into it, this is simply normal. It is home. Imagining a world where the Soviet Union never collapsed is more than a historical game. It reveals how the past shaped our present and how different things could have been. The globalized, interconnected world we know was not inevitable. This alternate history shows the enduring power of ideas and the fragility of freedom. The Cold War was a contest between two visions: individual liberty versus collective security. The survival of a reformed Soviet Union reminds us that these debates are never settled. Our interconnected world is precious and easily lost. The dangers of nationalism and great power rivalry are ever present. By exploring this unseen world, we gain perspective on our own. The questions raised by the Soviet Union's legacy are still with us and will shape our future.